How's it going, y'all? My name is Aiden Anderson, and this is a special episode of the Moscow Minutes. The city of Moscow recently put a draft of its new climate action plan up for public discussion before they begin the process of finalizing it. I'm going to go through it in this episode, do my best to answer questions about it, and we'll see if I have any feedback of my own to give. So let's get started. First off, authorship. This document's primary author is city staff member Kelly Cooper, who is the Environmental Education and Sustainability Specialist on city staff. The document also acknowledges the work of the city's Sustainable Environment Commission, as well as the Climate Action Working Group in the formation of this document. Second, we have the executive summary right at the beginning of the document, which is essentially a summary of the climate action plan's background and goals which it is intended to help achieve. To quote the executive summary itself, this climate action plan sets forth an ambitious set of climate goals/targets for the community and Moscow governmental operations, and lays out programs, policies, and projects that will enable the city to meet those goals. The Climate Action Plan begins with an introduction describing the need for climate action and the city's history in that particular area of focus. So this all started back in 2007 under Mayor Nancy Cheney, when Moscow joined the International Council for Local Environmental Initiatives, or ICLEI for short, and they joined it by way of resolution number 2007-13. So this was a resolution that Nancy Cheney signed that made Moscow a member of this ICLEI organization. ICLEI works with many local governments across the world to implement climate action in their communities. And a particular way that they do this is through their Race to Zero program, which provides steps for governments in membership with them to reach the goal of carbon neutrality within their own jurisdiction by the year 2050. Starting in 2007, the city of Moscow became a full-time member of this organization, and as a result of that, they have, and I'm quoting the Climate Action Plan here, they have pledged to take a leadership role in promoting public awareness about the causes and impacts of climate change. The resolution that was originally posted when the city joined ICLEI, that resolution noted that the city would undertake 5 milestones to reduce both greenhouse gases and air pollution emissions throughout the community. These milestones are as follows, and once again, this is from the Climate Action Plan. Conduct a greenhouse gas emissions inventory and forecast to determine the source and quantity of greenhouse gas emissions in the jurisdiction. Establish a greenhouse gas emissions reduction target. Develop an action plan with both existing and future actions, which when implemented will meet the local greenhouse gas reduction target, and then implement the action plan. And of course, throughout all of this, monitor the results and report progress as progress is made. So what progress has the city made so far? Well, in 2014, they committed to a goal of 20% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions for city operations at the levels that they were at in 2008. So 20% reduction from 2008 levels, and they hope to achieve that goal by the year 2020. As was the case, they successfully achieved that goal by the end of 2020, and they credit their fleet replacement program, the new eco-driver vehicles, and various efficiency improvements throughout city electrical and water systems for the emission reductions that they achieved. So in 2020, when they met their goal, the city added climate change as a major challenge area to their yearly city strategic plan. And later that year, they implemented the Climate Impacts Assessment, which details the potential effects of a changing climate on the city of Moscow and its residents. Later in 2021, the city had their first workshop on setting new climate goals going forward. the result of which is the climate action plan that we have before us today. So what are the city's goals for climate change in this new plan? Based on their membership with ICLEI, that ultimate goal is complete community carbon neutrality by the year 2050. That's a goal that ICLEI outlines for all of its members, but it also outlines an interim goal, which is to reach 50% of that carbon neutral goal by the year 2030. The city of Moscow calculated that in order to reach that goal, they need to achieve a 56% reduction in community emission levels based on what those levels were at in 2019. And for city operations, they've also set the goal of net zero emissions by the year 2035. So that's two goals there, one for the city, which is zero emissions by 2035, and one for the community in general, which is a reduction in emissions by 56%. How did the city calculate these goals? They used the ClearPath tool provided by their membership with ICLEI to complete an emissions inventory for city operations and the community in general. This was combined with energy usage data from Avista Utilities for various elements of the city's infrastructure, including commercial and residential usages, transportation, and solid waste. As you can see, according to their analysis, the biggest source of emissions in the city come from commercial and residential sources of energy usage. Following that, you can also see the type of energy associated with these emissions, which is primarily purchased electricity along with combusted fuels, with electricity just having a small lead over those combusted fuels. And then for city operations, it's clear that water and water treatment facilities take up the greater majority of their emissions as they've calculated them so far. So we've discussed the background of the climate action plan and the tools used by the city to calculate its climate action goals. Now on to the action part of the action plan. How does the city of Moscow plan to accomplish these climate action goals? Well, one major strategy is grid decarbonization, which is getting rid of carbon-based fuels for electrical generation and replacing them with renewable sources. Avista Utilities, which provides power to the whole city, is looking to provide completely carbon-neutral electricity by the year of 2027. So essentially, when Avista goes green, the city's power grid will be able to go green, at least by this particular plan. And that will reduce a large number of emissions in the area. Another major strategy is simply building efficiency. So working with new construction to reduce energy wasted in buildings throughout the city. Additionally, switching from natural gas-based heating to electrical heating would immediately reduce community-wide emissions as well. Other strategies the document provides are vehicle-related, reducing vehicle travel, increasing public transport and electric ride-sharing programs, and developing better electric vehicle infrastructure such as charging stations throughout the city. Other ideas are related to water and waste disposal, such as a compost program, and increasing the efforts of both the recycling and water conservation projects. For city operations, the Climate Action Plan suggests building repairs that make the city's facilities more energy efficient, LED light replacements for all streetlights and ball fields, replacing the city fleet with more electric vehicles like what they've already been doing, and focusing on building electrification same as the rest of the town. So that's an outline of the possible actions that the city of Moscow might take regarding climate change, at least in this plan. The rest of the documents associated with the Climate Action Plan are appendices, and those appendices contain the related climate resolutions and sources for their data. So that includes the original resolution when the city first joined ICLEI, as well as previous studies and assessments the city has done on the climate issue here, with the big one being the Climate Change Impact Assessment, which was done in 2020. I'd highly recommend giving these all a look on your own. So that's the Climate Action Plan, more or less, in a nutshell. There's a lot of information there, and like I said, I encourage you to go and do your own research on the subject. But right now I'm going to go through a few questions that we received as the Moscow Minutes crew on the Moscow Report Facebook page, as well as a few clarifying statements just to better frame future discussion on this document as it gets reviewed by the public and by the City Council. So question 1 from the Facebook comments: why does the environment matter? This is the sort of question that you generally get different answers for depending on what part of the political spectrum you're on. But regardless of what part of the political spectrum you're on, the reason the environment matters to the Moscow City Council, the reason this climate action plan is being created, is because that's what they're hearing from the people in their community. The city conducted a community-wide survey back in 2017 when they were deciding how they were going to prioritize various issues in the city. And of that survey, 68% of the respondents said that they were concerned or very concerned about the climate issue, while only 10% of those who responded to the survey said they were not concerned. I don't have the numbers from that survey in front of me, but regardless, that concern is what the City Council is hearing from people. So, in short, the reason that the environment and climate change matters to the city of Moscow is because it matters to the people who are petitioning them. They're putting their concerns forward, and the city of Moscow is responding. Question 2. What city code or law are they using to create this plan? This is a tricky question to answer. I could point you towards City Code Title 3, Chapter 9, which establishes the city's Sustainable Environment Commission. I could also point you to Resolution 2007-13, which Mayor Nancy Cheney signed, and which establishes Moscow's membership in ICLEI. Since this ICLEI membership has been the guiding force for the city's climate change policy since they joined, you could point to that resolution as the ultimate legal source of this document. As an aside, whether or not the Climate Action Plan has legal precedence might not actually matter. And that's because of the answer I have to question 3, which is, what power does this document really have? The fact is, the Climate Action Plan is not a law. It doesn't carry legal force. None of the plans and strategies contained in the plan are set in stone. Rather, this document is meant as a plan and a guide for future legislation. Like the city's overall comprehensive plan, which details priorities and guiding principles for city policy going into the future, the Climate Action Plan details priorities and procedures as pertains to the climate issue. So, if the city adopts this plan, they are making climate change one of their main priorities going into the future, and they will be using the plan's suggested strategies and procedures to influence city policy and legislation. If the city's law is like a house, you can think of the Climate Action Plan as one of the house's blueprints. Nothing's been built yet, but using a blueprint, you can see what the house might one day look like once it's built. So, in short, the city's Climate Action Plan is a blueprint for future city policy and procedure. With that, I have some announcements for you regarding the city's Climate Action Plan. Right now, the public comment period is open, and it will remain open until March 26th. Moscow residents can email their feedback to the city between now and then. The city is also hosting a public online open house where people can learn more about the plan, ask questions, provide feedback on March 9th between 6 and 7 p.m. In order to join that, you'll follow the link on the city website and enter the passcode 83843 to participate when the event is active. Since that's coming up pretty soon, I'd highly recommend that you attend and get all the info you need to give good feedback on this Climate Action Plan. And that is all I have for now on Moscow's Climate Action Plan. As always, we'll be posting the relevant links with this video, And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. And better yet, get your questions on the Climate Action Plan answered at the upcoming online open house. This is Aiden Anderson with the Moscow Minutes. See you next time.